let's talk about what I call competitive Christianity. It's a term I've coined, and I view it as being part of the collective Mormon psyche. So, kind of the psychological package you kind of receive as part of being Mormon. And I'm not saying that this is reflective of every individual Mormon or anything, but it's just something I've noticed in Mormon culture, Mormon collective behavior. So, Mormons as a collective have insecurity about their religion. They're aware that they're the butt of the jokes of shows like South Park and the internet, that people mock their sacred clothing and sacred temple rituals and, some of their historic beliefs, and that other Christians very often call them heretical or occult or whatever. So there's this insecurity, but there's also this, belief, we are Christian. And so this kind of results, in my opinion, in this tendency to prove that they're Christian, you know, really, this competitive Christianity. And so you kind of see this tendency to try to out Christian everybody, do the most missionary work, do the most service. And if you spend time in Mormon circles, you'll kind of hear them talk in a way that belies this tendency. You'll hear them talk about, well, my book says Jesus more than the Bible does. It's more Christian. Or, statistically, we do more service, or we know the Bible better, or whatever. And it's all these things that are just, trying to prove something that, we're Christian too, but we're not just also Christian, we're the most Christian. That's kind of a meme on Mormon Twitter. And it's a long held attitude. I mean, you look back on some of the quotes by, people like Joe Smith and Brigham Young about, Christianity more broadly, they're contemptuous. And it's understandable. I mean, they, face persecution, but it's an attitude that's survived, this attitude of honest contempt for, other Christians. And of course, Brad Wilcox coined it bluntly when, he thought the public wasn't listening, they're playing church, as he said. And yeah, it's a part of Mormon psychology. And in my amateur psych evaluation of collective Mormon psychology, it's a response to insecurity. It's, there's persecution complex, that plays a role in there. But it's just, we feel like the great and spacious building is looking down on us and jeering at us. And to top it all off, they're saying we're not even Christian. So let's prove that we are the most Christian. Let's prove that we give more cookies out than other people. We mow more lawns without being asked. And I think this does transfer over a bit to daily life. Mormons, as people generally perform good deeds, and I'm not trying to take that away or say that it's fake or hollow, but I think this tendency I'm talking about does play a little bit into the psychology of, your individual Mormon, and sort of this feeling that, you always have to give more, you always need to perform more service, more unpaid labor for your church, bear your testimony more, and all these things. And I think there is sort of a psychological reward feedback loop where, you do the good deed and you feel good about it. You feel validated in your beliefs because your beliefs produced a specimen who would do that kind of a good deed. And you just feel like, well, like a good Christian, very Christian, maybe more Christian than most. And again, I'm not, trying to say that Mormons have this poisonous mindset or are bad people, or that's not at all what I'm saying. But I think this is a real thing, and I think it, affects collective Mormon behavior and psychology, and I think it has a small effect on individual Mormon behavior and psychology. I think it plays a role in Mormons being so visibly, or trying to be so visibly Christian, always showing up to the service project, always dropping off the cookies, always trying to put their best face forward. And again, I'm not saying it's actually hollow or anything, but I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but It's a psychological observation of mine, and it could be wrong. But yeah, let me know. Let me know what you think. And have a good one. Goodbye.